The commentary in this video is not going to make sense unless you go back and watch part 1. It was too big to load it as a whole, so I had to cut it in 2. Okay, let's get this red maple. Now this is a wonderful tree to work this demonstration on because it's got 24 feet of 4-side clear, perfect fiber in it. 20-inch small end on the first log. So it's a fat little stick, like cutting a prime walnut or prime white oak, except that it doesn't have the value. So if we bust it, there's little to be lost. And so it's a very realistic simulation of cutting a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 white oak or a black walnut veneer. However, in my market, there is no such thing as a red maple veneer. So the value on this is it's really not that much better than a tie log, sadly. And so the risk is small if we get it wrong. Perfect tree to learn a technique on. Every tree, like every woman, is unique. And if you want the best outcome with the tree or the woman, you need to ask it what is unique about it. You need to ask the right questions and get honest responses. You need that feedback early, and you need to make sound adjustments based upon it. If you fail at this, things don't go your way, literally and figuratively. Now let's judge this book by its cover, shall we? This tree has an unmistakable lean to the right-hand side in this frame. To the right is slightly uphill, to the left is downhill. Uphill is highly favorable because there's less distance for the top to hit the ground and therefore less velocity, lower impact, and less likelihood to bust the top. In general, for all trees, top logs are much less valuable than bottom logs. But specific to this tree, note that big stiff limb to the top left. It's actually probably a second top where this tree had damage earlier in its life and then forked into 2. That limb is substantial enough to almost certainly bust the top log if the tree falls to the left. That curved limb is also heavy enough to skew the center of gravity of the top back towards the left and make this tree not so clear cut as to which way it really wants to go. Again, we are pretending that this tree is worth thousands, and it would be very foolish to cut in a conventional notch and hinge and then wedge the tree against the hinge. So we want to use a technique that severs all fiber before the top starts to go over. That way it cannot barber chair or pull fiber. My initial expectation was that the tree would go to the right even with that heavy limb offsetting the weight. Let's find out. Here's red maple. Really clean for this area. Although the small ones I've been cutting down have been hollow. I'm going to bore cut it to look at the chips to find out if it's hollow, because that's a surprise I don't want to find out on the fly. I'm in a situation where I'm in the wide open. I can run in any direction. It could fall in any direction and really not cause any harm. Not a whole lot anyway. The camera's on the opposite side now, so left is going up the hill. Slick stump means no hinge, no notch, which means really no wedging. I'm going to set a wedge in the beginning as an indicator to see if it's closing and to help prevent my bar from getting caught. If it doesn't close that kerf on this side, because I want the tree to go this way, if it don't close that kerf, that indicates the tree wants to go that way. If I put an indicator wedge and it wedge droops down, that means the tree's going the wrong way. If it stands up or pinches tight, then that means the tree is trying to close that kerf and it's agreeing with my plan. I'm going to sever 100% of that fiber without any directional control, and people are going to scream in the comments that it's dangerous and this and that. Yeah, I guess it is. Waking up in the morning is dangerous. Tree felling is dangerous. Not understanding the mechanics of all of these things is even more dangerous. So I'm already in, and actually I might be feeling a little void here. Here I take my time boring out all this holding fiber. I've got that indicator wedge in the front. It's not dropping. The kerf isn't opening. It isn't closing. I'm using my bar as a feeler gauge to ask the question, what are you doing? Are you going to drop into the direction I want? Are you going to settle in, or are you going to lean back the other way? And with absolutely no danger, the question is answered. This tree's in a completely vertical state of balance. And right here, I decide it's probably best to send it down the hill. Now just imagine if I had used a GOL on this tree. I would have created a notch right here with the hinge behind it, and then this red circle would be the trigger. Obviously, this setup would be for falling it to the left, but it's constrained by the trigger wood and the hinge wood, so how would I know? The tree's unable to tell me that it won't go left. So when I nip the trigger wood, it either pinches my bar, or it just stands there, or it tears off to the right by surprise. I'm getting too old to run for my life. Now look at me. Am I running? I already know I've lost this tree, but it doesn't matter because the tree's going to stay standing for as long as I leave it up, and I still have a closed kerf that I can wedge in any direction. I haven't removed any big chunk of wood. How would you go about wedging this train wreck when you realize you got it wrong? Where would you actually put the wedge? You'd need a freaking bumper jack. The kerf has not changed at all. The size of this opening has not changed. It hasn't opened or closed. If I go straight that way with it, the top's gonna land on the asphalt, and I don't want it to. So I'm gonna try to send it over there without ripping it off too bad. And I think I'm gonna put a little bitty notch right there. Now we're back on the original side. You can see down the hill is to the left. So I am putting wedges in the back. This way the tree can't set down and go the original way that I wanted it to, and I will have a little bit of influence on getting it going if needed. I'm gonna cut that hold wood on the left-hand side in this frame. And this right here is in real time. For something so reckless and supposedly out of control compared to GOL, it's honestly pretty boring. It's been starting to go for 5, 7, 8 seconds now. It's really not a lot to write home about here. I know when it's going, I know where it's going. I'm 50 feet away when it finally does a perfect stump slide. What exactly is out of control with this cutting system? And consider, this is me losing it. This is a worst case scenario. It did not go where I planned it to go. Yet I'm the one who turned it loose, and it went exactly where I knew it was going to on my schedule. That's pretty safe. How much safer do you think logging gets? Note that there's not a single hair standing up. That means no fiber was pulled from the butt log. So there is a little block right here that'll clean right off. There's no cracks, no fiber pull. 100% perfect butt log. Even though I cracked the top log, and I do regret it, because I'm kind of a perfectionist in some things, and I wish that I could say it was perfect, but it wasn't. So right here you can see where I changed directions. Now originally I had cut out all this fiber in here, and I kept going back and back, and I'm thinking, man, this tree better sit down soon, meaning this side close up. So you go to put your bar back in. If your bar won't go back in where it was previously, then you know it's closed up. That means the tree's going the way you wanted. But this is not about imposing my will on the tree. This style of cutting is about letting the tree go where it wants to naturally and letting it do the least destruction on the way down. Had this been going and falling down through other standing trees, you'd be amazed at how easily it would roll off of such small trees and not do damage. Well, it's time to wrap this one up. I'm ready to get flamed by the people who've been, cutting timber their whole life, but when they get it wrong, they leave a mess like this in the woods. So, whose stumps would you prefer on your land? Them ones right there, or mine right here? These are my boo-boos. When it goes wrong for me, you can't really tell. The 3-inch tall stump, how's that look? Which one would you prefer?